Tonight's lesson text is going to be found in James chapter 1. I'm going to read verses 12 through 18. For name's sake, we're simply going to title this, He Chose Me. What I like better, if it was me doing the talking, would be simply say, He picked me. It'd be the same thing. Let's read together in verses 12 through 18. James chapter 1. Blessed is the man that endureth temptation, for when he is tried, he shall receive the crown of life which the Lord hath promised to them that love him. Let no man say when he is tempted, I am tempted of God, for God cannot be tempted with sin, neither tempted any man. But every man is tempted when he is drawn away of his own lust and enticed. Then when lust hath conceived, it bringeth forth sin, and sin when it is finished, bringeth forth death. Do not err, my beloved brethren. Every good gift and every perfect gift is from above, and cometh down from the Father of lights, with whom is no variableness, neither shadow of turning. Of his own will begat he us with a word of truth, that we should be a kind of first fruits of his creatures. Some of you won't remember, some of you will. I think probably since we have reached a stage in our society where people are so concerned about liability, this is probably something they don't do at school. We used to do it. We did a couple of things. When I was in grade school, we played Red Rover, and we played dodgeball, things like that. But my favorite thing to play when I got into high school was what we called pinball. What we would do is we would set bowling pins up in the basketball court, one on each side on the foul lines for the side goals. On each side, the half court line would be lined with volleyballs. And you'd get down and you'd crouch down, and the coach would blow a whistle and everybody would run to get a volleyball, and you try to take somebody's head off with it. And they liked it. If you knocked their pin down, you won. If you hit them, they won. But if they caught the ball, you were out. And I was pretty good at catching the ball. And you could take another volleyball and you could guard the pin with it. And I always liked that game. Probably for liability reasons, that's not a sport anymore, but it was then. But that game revolved around choosing a team. Red Rover revolved around choosing a team. Dodgeball revolved around choosing a team. Pinball revolved around choosing a team. Today, kids will get out in a field somewhere. We used to play in that lot next to the house I grew up in. It seemed like to us was big as a football field, and it wasn't probably much bigger than this building, maybe twice that big, but we played baseball and we played football, and we choose teams. Somebody had to choose you. To be on a team, you had to be chosen. Well, life has to do with choices. Sometimes we're placed in situations where we're chosen by others. In that game, those games I just talked about, somebody would pick you. And sometimes in school, we always wanted to be chosen first, but sometimes in school, you'd be the last one picked. Now, in regular life, sometimes we don't want to be picked. But if we had to be chosen, no matter what we're talking about, nobody wants to be the last one picked. That was a walk of shame whenever you were the last kid that was chosen for a team, and you'd walk with your head down and go and get in that line. What that meant, in essence, was that everybody thought, except you, that you were no good. That's what it boiled down to. And it was always horrible to be the last one called on, and you didn't want to walk that walk of shame. You'd rather find a rock somewhere and crawl up under it and just hide until everybody disappeared so you couldn't be seen. But what about the choices of our own? We make them every day. We make decisions every day. Many of the decisions we make are minor. They don't have any real significance. We decide what clothes we're going to wear today. We decide what we're going to eat. We decide what we're going to have for whatever. And in the great scheme of things, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter what you had for breakfast today. By lunch, it's immaterial what you ate for breakfast. By supper time, it's immaterial what you ate for lunch. And no matter what we have over here tonight that'll be good, by in the morning it won't matter. And we'll have to make a choice all over again. Sometimes when it comes to what we eat, we make good decisions. We make good choices. Sometimes we make poor choices. But when it comes to decisions that we make that matter, the choices that we make that make a difference in what direction our life is going to ultimately go, well, those choices make a difference. They make a difference that can impact our eternal well-being. And so the outcome of a bad choice like that can be enduring, because that decision will not only haunt you throughout the rest of your life, but that decision is going to determine your eternal destiny and whether or not you see a place called heaven or whether or not you see a place called hell. So there are decisions to be made. In Joshua chapter 24, verses 14 and 15, and I'm just going to use part of that, Joshua had called together the children of Israel, the leaders of the Israelites, and he told them, choose you this day whom you'll serve. He said, you can choose the gods of the people that we dwell around, their gods. You can choose the gods of Egypt that we came out of, or you can choose God. He said, as for me and my house, he said, we're going to choose the Lord. And the fact is that God has granted every one of us free will. He gives us the opportunity to make our own choices. And he not only does that, but he provides us with the right information so that you and I can make the right choice. Don't you hate to pick if you don't understand the choices that are offered to you? I mean, sometimes we might, once in a while or occasionally, go in a restaurant somewhere. We're on vacation. We went to some places that were far above my pay grade. And so I'd look down at the menu and I'd see something there and I had no idea what it was. And so it was really kind of what you might call a surprise when it got there. And sometimes I would gain instructions from Tammy or Eric or Stacy, but sometimes I just acted like I knew when they didn't order it. And so, you know, it's hard to make a decision when you really are not well informed. But it didn't matter. When it was all said and done, I had a belly full of grub. That was the end of it. If it was something really bad, I memorized that name, so I'd never make that mistake again. But God gives us the right kind of information to make the right choice. The Bible is filled with information that will provide us the answers to every situation we encounter in life, give us the correct response to every situation we encounter in life, and along with it, give us all the information that we need to know what I must do to go to a place called heaven. He's given us all things that pertain unto life and godliness through the knowledge of him that called us to glory and virtue. 2 Peter 1 and verse 3. All Scripture is given by inspiration of God and is profitable for doctrine, for reproof, for correction, for instruction in righteousness, that the man of God may be perfect. That word perfect meaning complete, thoroughly furnished or truly furnished unto every good work. 2 Timothy 3 verses 16 and 17. And Paul told Timothy in verse 15, he said, that from a child thou hast known the Holy Scriptures, which are able to make thee wise unto salvation. So the fact is, the choosing is on me. And we can make wise choices as we examine the options. We all have our own decisions to make. Let's go back in the Old Testament to the book of Numbers. And let's go to Numbers chapter 13, I believe is what I want. And I've got to get there myself. And let's look at verses 1 and 2. And the Lord spake unto Moses, saying, Send thou men, that they may search the land of Canaan, which I have given unto the children of Israel, and of every tribe of their fathers shall you send a man, every one a ruler among them. Notice that. God's calling on them to go in and seek out the land. This story, of course, revolves around the sending in of the spies to examine the land to bring back a report for the children of Israel. Verse 17. And Moses sent them to spy out the land of Canaan, and said unto them, Get ye up this way southward, and go up into the mountain, and see the land, what it is, and the people that dwelleth therein, whether they be strong or weak, few or many. What the land is that they dwell in, whether it be good or bad, and what cities they be that they dwell in, whether in tents or in strongholds, and what the land is, whether it be fat or lean, whether it be a wood therein or not, and be of good courage, and bring of the fruit of the land. Now the time was the time of the first ripe grapes. So they went up and searched the land in the wilderness of Zin unto Rehob, as men came to Hamath. So here we see God sent them in. We go on and we read, beginning in verse 25, and reading through verse 33. And they returned from searching of the land after 40 days. And they went and came to Moses and to Aaron and all the congregation of the children of Israel unto the wilderness of Paran to Kadesh, and brought back word unto them and all the congregation, and showed them the fruit of the land. And they told him and said, We came unto the land whither thou sentest us, and surely it floweth with milk and honey, and this is the fruit of it. Nevertheless, the people be strong that dwell in the land, and the cities are walled and very great. And moreover, we saw the children of Anak there, and the Amalekites dwell in the land of the south, and the Hittites, and the Jebusites, and the Amorites dwell in the mountains, and the Canaanites dwell by the sea and by the coast of Jordan. Can you see where this is going? And Caleb stilled the people before Moses and said, Let us go up at once and possess it, for we are well able to overcome it. But the men that went up with him said, We be not able to go up against these people, for they are stronger than we. And they brought up an evil report of the land which they had searched unto the children of Israel, saying, The land through which we have gone to search it, it is the land eateth up of the inhabitants thereof, and all the people that we saw in it are men of great stature. And there we saw the giants, the sons of Anak, which come of the giants, and we were in our own sight as grasshoppers, and so we were in their sight. They had a chance to choose. What did they do? They gave a bad report. They reported as spies back to the children of Israel, We can't take this. Numbers chapter 14, verses 1 through 10. And the children of Israel had a choice, and their choice was that they could not take that. Numbers chapter 14, verses 20 through 23, a poor decision. And because of their poor decision, God forbid them the opportunity from that time forward to see the land. And God caused them to wander in the wilderness for 40 years until that generation of people would perish from off the face of the earth. Numbers 14, verses 24 through 33. Why did God do that? And I'm leaving those verses out because we want more time next door. And you'll be glad. God blesses who and how He blesses. And God curses who and how He curses. And every blessing and every cursing that comes upon mankind comes based on a choice that man has made. Deuteronomy chapter 30, verses 15 through 20. God blessed Israel. God cursed Israel. And in the same way, God sees us. And He blesses who and how He blesses. And He curses who and how he curses. And these blessings and these cursings were a result of decisions that God made based upon the choice of his own people. They could choose to serve God, or they could choose to rebel. The choice was all theirs. The decision was all theirs. As we serve God, we succeed. As we turn away from God, as we rebel, so we fail. The difference in the nation of Israel and the Old Testament law was that they were under a little different system than we are. I've heard it referred to for 40 years in this way, and I think that it's a good description. They were many times under what we call a pay me now plan. Many times when they rebelled, God would snuff them out. God would have the children of Israel snuff them out. They would be taken out. When Moses went into the mountain in Mount Sinai to receive the Ten Commandments, while he was up there for 40 days, the children of Israel grew bored. Aaron made them a golden calf. They began to rise up. They began to sin. They began to play. Moses came down from the mount, broke the tablets that God had made with his own hand, and 23,000 fell in that one day. All because they made a choice. They paid now. We're under a different plan. We pay later. But pay we shall. Pay we will. Paul refers in the New Testament to our reward that is given according to each man's own work. There is the reward of righteousness for those who obey God. There's a reward of eternal separation for those who choose not to walk with God. It's choice. So that means if I want to walk with God, and I might be limited in how I can walk. I might have to take baby steps. I might have to crawl. I might have to be carried along or helped along. I might have to be lifted up along the way. But James says, behold, we count them happy who endure. I don't have to cross the finish line first to be number one. All I've got to do is cross the line to the very best of my ability. I'm convinced from this parable of the talents in Matthew chapter 25 that God judges every man and every woman according to their ability, what they are capable of doing. You and I might be able to look at somebody and say, you know what, I think so-and-so could be doing such and such. We're guilty of that a lot of times. And we all are. We'll say to ourselves, I don't understand why so-and-so is not doing this or such and such is not doing that. Each of us is individually responsible for what we do with our talents, but it's not really up to you or up to me to decide what you are capable of, or you decide what I am capable of. But I promise you, God will sort all of that out. And God will get every bit of that exactly right. You know why you and I can't do the picking and choosing? Because we might make a mistake. We might let the wrong one in. We might cast the wrong one out. But God, who understands us all, far better than we'll ever understand ourselves, even in our shortcomings, even in our frailties. As long as we continue and strive to try to endure, as long as we continue to strive and walk in the light, as He is in the light, we will always have, if we walk with Him, fellowship one with another. And the blood of His Son, Jesus Christ, will cleanse us from every sin. Now, I'm not talking about sins of rebellion. Don't leave here thinking that's what I'm talking about. But I'm talking about serving God to the very best of my ability. I do what I can do. The time might come when I'll be too old and frail to lift somebody up. But while I'm strong, while I'm young, I'm commanded to bear you one another's burdens and so fulfill the law of Christ. That's true physically, and that's true spiritually speaking. God blessed Israel until they rebel so much that they are no more. God will bless us until we rebel so much that we are no more. So how do I make good decisions? How do I make good choices? Well, it's very simple. The first step in that decision-making process always begins with Jesus. Let us lay aside every weight and the sin which does so easily beset us, and let us run with patience the race that is set before us, looking unto Jesus, the author and finisher of our faith. Hebrews chapter 12, verses 1 and 2. So stop. Stop wherever you're at. If you're not going in the right direction, by all means, stop. Look. Take a good look and see where the direction you're going in has taken you so far, and take a look and see where the direction is going to carry you if you continue to pursue in this course. Listen. Can you not hear what he says? I remember one time years ago, I was 19. I know how old I was. I was driving a truck for Hoy Bell. Bob, you remember those days? Yeah. Driving a truck for Hoy Bell. And my cousin had asked me to come by and see him in Arcadia. And it was my last load. I was on my way to Minden. I went through Arcadia and go down the interstate. And I went by to see him. And when I left there, I wasn't exactly sure. You know, back then you didn't have Google search. You didn't have Google Maps. You just had to know. And I needed to get back over and get on the road. I needed to come out over and get on I-20. My cousin said, go right up here and just continue straight. Well, I did. And guess what? That was one of those roads that did not have an exit to go off on I-20. And here I was with this truck trailer. And I stopped, but there was nowhere to look. And I looked, but there was no way to listen. And some guy came along and he said, if you'll go down here so-and-so, and said, you'll turn right, said, you can circle around and come right back on this road and you can get back to Arcadia. I said, is that road you're talking about, is it good for a truck? He said, oh yeah, you don't have a problem at all, son. Well, I tore every fence and bush there was around down on the side of that highway coming through there with that trailer. So I finally got back to I-20. But life sometimes demands that we stop. Sometimes it demands that we look. Sometimes it demands that we listen. So that God, not some stranger on the side of the highway I had never met, not some stranger that had no concept of what it took to make the journey I had to make with the vehicle I was driving. God gives us directions so we can make choices and decisions that work. One more quick story about trucking. Me and Gene had been to somewhere and picked up a load of 90-foot powder. He was in one of Woody's trucks. I was in Bobby's truck. And I was 127 and a half foot long from front bumper to the back. And Gene was 128 foot long from the front bumper to the back. And we got turned around and couldn't find the mill we were supposed to go to in DeRidder. And my radio wasn't working because my alternator had went out and I couldn't kill the truck. I had to just drive. And Gene stopped up there and he said, I just got through talking to somebody, flagged me down. He said, they gave me some directions. He said, what we need to do is go right down here to this next red light and turn left. I said, I'm following you. And we turned left. And the further we got, the smaller that road got. And the more narrow it got. And I knew we were in trouble when I looked to the right and there were some people standing on the porch of the house looking and laughing. And I saw his brake lights come on the top of the hill. We had driven about 2 miles down a dead-end road. And we had to back out. Bad directions from somebody who didn't know or somebody who didn't care. God gives us kind of directions that'll work. So stop, look, and listen. And allow Him to direct every step, and you'll find a path that can be traveled. And you'll find a path that will be easy, even though life can be hard. And we couple His Word with the decision that we've made that I'm going to do the very best that I can. And eventually, as we do the best we can, we all of a sudden start doing better. When I first bought Mr. Gilbert out in the service station when I was 19 years old, as I was getting ready to buy him out, he used to give me little bits and pieces of advice. And he said to me one day, he said, son, when you buy this place, he said, you need to remember. He said, there's going to come a time that you can't make $1. He says, so what you've got to do when you can't make $1 is you make a dime until $1 comes along. Well, I said, what? Sometimes we find ourselves backed against the wall and we can't do or we think we can't do because we think we can't do something great. But we do what we can until we can do better. Does that make sense? Sure it does. Submit yourselves, therefore, to God. Resist the devil, and he will flee from you. Draw nigh to God, and he will draw nigh to you. James 4, verses 7 and 8. And continue to look to Jesus for the perfect example, who had both the freedom and the opportunity to choose. He chose for me in my behalf because I could not choose. Once I've sinned, that's a choice I could not make. Not for myself and not for others. But the only one who could choose to live, die for me, did what only he could do. He died so that I might live. He chose us over self. Or in other words, Here we go all the way back to the beginning. He picked me. He chose me. Even as he agonized over what awaited, he picked me. He chose me by choosing God. So as we look at our lives, as they are filled with daily decisions, at the core, many of those choices, those decisions, lies this question: who am I going to put first? Me or my Lord? Since He chose me, since He picked me, I need to choose Him. I need to pick. If you'd have a need in any way tonight to respond to the invitation, you can come now. While together we stand and we sing their encouragement.